Let's get started. Article 3. Mesopotamia. Clay tokens. Exactly. 4,000 years before the invention of money and writing, humans had already begun borrowing and lending. During excavations in Mesopotamia, dating back to 8,000 BC, archaeologists unearthed thousands of small, geometric objects made of baked clay. For a long time, the scientific world had no idea what these objects were. The agricultural revolution had just begun. A harvest one year could be magnificent, but a drought over the subsequent 3 years could spawn catastrophic problems. It was precisely this prehistoric dilemma that forced human intelligence to engineer the first financial alchemy in history. Clans had to lend their surplus grain or livestock to one another. Yet, there was neither writing nor money. At this exact bottleneck of trust, the system gave birth to clay tokens. When you gave 3 sacks of wheat to your neighbor to be reclaimed in the future, your neighbor would give you 3 clay cones. A sphere represented a sheep, a cylinder represented a piece of clothing, and a pyramid represented a specific unit of labor. These tokens were far more powerful than the money in your pocket. They were the present-day manifestation of a tangible future asset. In other words, history's first promissory notes. Over time, the number of these tokens grew so immensely that people began locking them inside sphere-shaped clay envelopes to secure these commitments. They then stamped symbols onto the envelopes, equal to the number of tokens inside. And then came that pivotal turning point. After a while, people realized there was no need to break the envelope and look at the tokens within. Those small impressions on the envelope, those symbols, had become more valuable than the asset itself. Humanity did not invent writing to philosophize or to write poetry. Writing was born entirely as a financial necessity, driven by the intense pressure generated by this prehistoric credit system and debt accounting. Our ancestors had found a brilliant tool for survival. Yet, without realizing it, they had unlocked the greatest door in human history. These small clay tokens were the unshakable foundation of that first organizational bond, permanently binding man to the soil and to an institutional system. Article 2. Stonehenge and Logistics. Credit. When you look at Stonehenge in England, what do you see? Probably just massive, mystical stones piled on top of one another. Official history books present it to you as a place of worship or an astronomical calendar. The year is 3000 BC. Those stones were brought from the Preseli Hills in Wales, exactly 250 kilometers away. They had to ferry these mammoth blocks, the smallest weighing 4 tons, across rivers, navigate them through mountains, and haul them for hundreds of kilometers. But why? Why go 250 kilometers away instead of using the ordinary stones right behind them? Because those stones were a prehistoric bond of trust. Let us consider this on a grand scale. To transport a single stone from Wales to England, hundreds of people had to labor for months, even years, solely on this logistics operation. For these people to survive while hauling stones, a massive infrastructure of food, shelter, and organization had to be established in the background. In other words, one clan had to extend a massive labor credit to other clans to be repaid in the future. This logistical compulsion was not a faith-driven exchange between clans. It was history's first major long-term infrastructure investment. By delivering the stones, the community in Wales earned the right to receive food and security assistance from the community in England during future times of famine. The stones were physical bonds sealing the two regions together. Article 1. Cowrie shell. Inflation. If you think history's first global currency was made of gold or silver, you are mistaken. That currency was a tiny seashell from the depths of the ocean. Cowrie shells. Harvested in the Maldives, these small, lightweight, and inimitable shells were used as official currency in a colossal trade network spanning from China to Africa and from India to the depths of Europe during the prehistoric era. Yet, even in the prehistoric era, mankind managed to find the loophole in the system. Certain coastal clans built large boats, reached these shell beds in the Maldives, and launched massive operations to flood the market with tons of seashells. These boundless cowrie shells, abruptly entering the market, triggered the first mysterious hyperinflation shock in human history. Clans that could previously purchase a cow or an ox for just 2 seashells suddenly found themselves unable to buy a chicken, even with sacks full of shells. This prehistoric monetary crisis forced communities to return to a barter economy or to establish more rigid, centralized, and controllable asset systems. Seashells had become humanity's first grand experience with global financial mechanisms.